All right, we are live for another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 102. And it's a decent card, not the best in the world, but there's a few spots I like. There's a few spots I'm checking out. I think it's a decent betting card, and we can jump right into it in a moment. First, we're going to recap last week real quick, UFC 312. I profited barely, 0.82 units or 8.3. I'll take it. Some good bets, some very bad bets, and I'll go through them real quick. So, Weili Zhang, amazing bet. I wish I went heavier. I got scared off by some of the noise, but that cash, and I cashed the fight goes to decision on that one. Those were great. Weili, just an absolute beast. Taliesin Teixeira cash, minus 135 to win 1 unit. That felt good, too. So, fade on Tafa and kind of just buying into the huge size of Teixeira and thinking his skill set seemed very solid to me, and he just ran through Tafa, so that was good. After that, we had Slava Borshev, bad bet, minus 145, 2 units. Bad bet. Tom Nolan just kind of beat him everywhere. On the feet, like it was close, but Nolan pulled it off. The grappling really helped him get the job done. Few really close submission attempts. Great bet on Nolan. Anybody who took it, I lost on Slava. Then I had Bruna Brazil for a unit total. I had plus 285 for a half and plus 370 for a half. Terrible bet. Never even close. She stood no chance. It was an abysmal performance. And then Anshul Jubli plus 500. I really wish it got to play out at least, but he got finished. Was it an early stoppage? I think a little bit, but I'm also incredibly biased because I had not only the money line, but I also had the over 2.5. So I am going to be biased. I thought maybe you could let it go a little bit, but realistically, like he did get dropped pretty hard and he did just cover up. So it makes sense that the ref stopped it. I don't think it's like the worst stoppage ever or anything like that. Then we had so I mentioned the Salkill Jubli over. We had the Colby Thickness, Alexander Topuria over 1.5. That was nice. That cash, they won all 15. Good bet. I kind of just faded the whole, I think the line was set that way because of Topuria having all these early finishes, him taking on a short notice opponent. So I kind of just faded that narrative and kind of bought into the narrative of Colby being a pretty good fighter in his own right. And I thought that they would go over the 1.5 mark, and they did. Then we had fight ends by KO in the Crute Bellato fight. Came real close, and then they get a draw. So it happens. Probably a bet I would make again, though, seeing how it played out. And then Steele, round 3 decision, terrible play. I should have just gone with Rongju money line, but hindsight is 2020, and that was a forced play to say the least. Steele, terrible game plan. Came out there stand and bang with a guy who could do it better than he could, and he lost. I had Matthews by decision. That cashed. He outclassed Prado. To this day, I still don't understand what Prado was thinking moving up in weight. Clearly, his power doesn't translate. I think it was a mistake, and he should probably go back down. Then I had the parlay Duplessis Santos that cashed plus 115 for 1 unit. Solid parlay. Dricus dominated. Santos, there was a shaky moment, but for the most part, he looked real good. That dude is elite. So nice parlay cash there. And then I had the Jusei Mikaev fight goes the distance, minus 130. And that cashed relatively easily, too. We did have the scary moment where Mikaev dropped him with a head kick. Great head kick. But thankfully, after that, it slowed down a little bit, and we made it all the way. So, yeah, 0.83 unit profit last week. I would like it to be a little bit more significant this week. So let's see what we can do. I already have 2 bets, and I expect myself to add a couple more at least. So let me pull up our little Tapology. There we go. Make this a little smaller. Make that bigger for myself. All right. There we go. So first fight of the night, Julia Avila is coming back from a very long layoff. Maybe not that long, 1 year and 2 months, but she's very inactive. Versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti, I think it is. Avila 9-3-0. She's 36 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Jacqueline's 8-1-0. She's 27, so she's going to be 9 years younger. She's going to be 1 inch taller, and she's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage. Not going to waste a ton of time here. If this was like many years ago, maybe I would say the line is like ridiculous and Avila is maybe a dog play. But honestly, I have no interest in the underdog here. Cavalcanti, just the younger, fresher fighter. Great striker. Solid takedown defense. Maybe Avila could get some grappling going. But overall, I think Jacqueline's going to outclass her, outstrike her. Output is really good. The problem with her is like you can't really play that minus 500 because she doesn't tend to separate against. I know that like the splits she's getting aren't real splits. Like the judges are just doing bad judging. But that's kind of the point, right? You can't really lay minus 500 where she's not separating enough and bad judging can still happen. You know, you want a fighter who will either finish or make it very, very clear that they won if you're betting them at minus 500. Now, I do think Jacqueline can finish here, and I am kind of interested in the ITD props. They got smoked already, so they're not as good as they were at open. I'm thinking maybe like a KO because maybe Avila is just kind of done. She can't take the shots as well. Just an attritional knockout, not because Jacqueline's some kind of really powerful hitter, but just because she lands so much and she's very, very clean with it, very accurate, very precise. And I could see the attritional knockout happening. So maybe like a Jacqueline KO prop, depending on what domestics give me, or like a Jacqueline round 2-3 KO prop. That could work too, depending on the odds. So I'm going to check that out. Otherwise, I doubt I'm going to play much here. It's Jacqueline for me. Nothing you can really do with the money line. Real quick, I forgot to catch up with the chat. Just got Steve-O Knows in here. Thanks, Steve-O. And make sure you guys are smashing the like button and subscribing. We did very good last week with the likes. Let's see if we can make that happen again. And make sure you guys hop in the chat. Come talk with me. It's always way more fun that way. All right, moving on. We've got Valter Walker versus Don'Tale Mayes. Walker 12-1-0. He's 27 years old. 6'6" with a 78.5-inch reach. Mayes on the other side, 11-7-0, 33. So he's going to be 6 years older. He's going to be the same height, but he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. So I need to tape this one more. This is one that I didn't really get to check out all that much. It's one where it's like Valter Walker's probably the side. He's the younger guy. You know, he's got really solid wrestling, spent a ton of time in Russia. I'm pretty sure he's half Russian. Jiu-jitsu seems pretty good. I'm not going to put a ton of emphasis into the heel hook in his last fight against, that was Tafa, right? Yeah, Junior Tafa. It was an interesting one. I mean, it looked pretty nice, and Tafa did verbally tap with the yelling. I didn't know that was a rule until that happened, but it is a rule. So he's got good grappling. His striking kind of sucks. He's super hittable, very plotty, slow. Not a guy that I'm rushing to the window to lay minus 210 on. Now, Don'Tale Mayes is a guy who you don't need to give me much to fade him, but he's a decent guy. And he's athletic. He's athletic. He hits relatively hard. The striking's not bad. The wrestling's not bad. Takedown defense isn't great, but it's not horrible either. So it's one where, like I said, I need to look into it a little bit more. I definitely lean towards the Walker side just because of the youth, wrestling upside. He's very strong, very physical. Maybe some jiu-jitsu upside as well. And I'm just not crazy on Mayes. But the line's kind of nuts. So I wouldn't be super shocked if I talked myself onto a small Mayes bet. We'll see. I know a lot of sharp people on Walker. Usually don't let that influence me too much, but don't know if that's a good or bad thing. So we'll see with this fight. Like I said, you need to do a little bit more homework, but definitely leaning towards the younger guy in Valter Walker. And we can move on. All right, this spot I'm excited to talk about. Next up, we've got Vince Morales versus Elijah Smith. Steve-O Knows saying, I think Walker gets the takedowns and gets a ground and pound TKO here. I could see that happening. His ground and pound is solid. His control is pretty good too. And I could see Mayes getting stuck on his back pretty much every round. So that does make sense to me. But back to this fight, Vince Morales versus Elijah Smith. Morales 16-8-0. He's 34 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. And this is his second UFC stint. He got cut, I believe, after the Miles Johns loss. Then he won a bunch. He had a few fights in Risen, one fight in the UFL. I believe that's what it's called, United Fight League, right? Yeah, against Hunter Azure, which is a good win. And yeah, he came back, and he's been looking pretty good, honestly. And then, did I go through his measurables? I just forgot. Either way, yeah, I think I did. And then Smith, 7-1-0. He's 22, so he's going to be 12 years younger, 2 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. So I'm on Morales here. I'm on the underdog, and I'm actually picking him to win outright. And here's what I'm thinking. I think that Smith is the goods. I think that his ceiling is incredibly high. He's still really young. He's 22. I think he's really, really green. And that's why I like Morales here. But in terms of just like ceiling, his ceiling is much higher than Morales. He could be a top guy. Super athletic, super strong, super explosive, good striking already, really solid wrestling. He's a guy who can really go far in the UFC, and he can definitely beat a lot of these guys that are already in the UFC, the lower level and maybe the mid-tier too. But I just think that he's still very green. That's the first problem. I think he's relatively hittable, and I think his cardio is bad. I mean, he slowed down real hard in the Aaron Tao, I believe that's his name, Aaron Tao fight on the Contender Series. He started slowing already in the second round and then slowed down a lot more in the third. Aaron Tao won that round, outlanded him by a decent margin. And the cardio is definitely a concern. And with Morales, Morales, he's not a world beater. He's not the best in the world, but he's a good fighter. His striking's not bad. At distance, at range, I think Smith is better. Definitely has the reach a little bit more, uses it better. But Morales, he's a solid striker in his own right. And when he's in the pocket, he's dangerous and he's very, very fast. He does target the body well. I noticed that. And I know his output's not that great, but if you look at the opponents that his output isn't good at, it's guys with good movement, good defense. Taylor Lapilus, for example, a guy who's very hard to hit, a guy who's very hard to outstrike. Usually if you're beating him because you can grapple with him. And Morales did get a few takedowns. You just couldn't hold him down, and it makes sense. Like, I thought that Taylor Lapilus would win that fight, and I think Taylor Lapilus is a much more developed fighter than Elijah Smith. Maybe Smith will one day be better than him, but right now he's just not as developed. And then you look at other fights where his opponents don't move as much, he's landing more. In the Hunter Azure fight at UFL, he was landing plenty. UFC, you go back to Draco Rodriguez, low-level comp, but landed a pretty decent amount. So his output's not amazing, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it's just pretty dependent on the movement and defense of his opponent, which is fair, makes sense. So on the feet here, I think at least early, Smith definitely is going to be the better striker. He's going to be landing the nicer shots, the more effective shots. Definitely has the power edge. If someone gets a knockout, at least like a clean knockout, not a nutritional one, I think it's going to be Smith. But Morales, in my opinion, is pretty durable, so I don't really think he knocks him out. And I just don't think Smith has like a ton of process with the striking. I think he kind of just blitzes forward. Like, his counters are pretty good, but I just have a hard time seeing him do it over 15 minutes, like, very competently. And I just think that after that first round, the striking exchanges are going to get a lot closer, and Morales is going to start landing a lot more. And the more that he can back up Smith, the better it is for him. Because, like I said, I think he does his best work in the pocket. And Smith's defense is nothing to write home about. He's pretty damn hittable. The counters are going to be there, and that's something Morales can do. So I do think it could be competitive on the feet. Early, maybe not. Smith will look like he's definitely got the edge. He's hitting him really hard. But I think as the fight goes on, Morales is going to start to catch up on the feet. And I think he is live to, do some good work there and win some minutes. And then with the grappling, Smith is a good wrestler, but Morales comes from a wrestling background as well. He's a good wrestler in his own right. I could see him getting taken down. I don't really see him getting held down because Smith's control, in my opinion, isn't very good. So I think Morales will be able to get back up onto his feet. And as the fight goes on, I could see Morales landing his own takedowns. I would not be shocked at all if he started landing them in the second, third round, maybe even in the first, because he is a good wrestler in his own right. And he's also got really opportunistic submissions. That's another thing with him. He can lock in the front chokes. He's got the Peruvian necktie, the Darce. And Smith kind of does stick his neck out when he's shooting, so he's not super careful with that. So I can see Morales catching him down there. I could see Morales ending up on top later in the fight. I definitely think Morales has the level of competition advantage here. He's fought the much better competition. He's fought all over the place. He's a much more experienced guy. I'm confident that he has the cardio advantage, the pace advantage in terms of like he can keep the pace going longer than Smith can. And I just think that overall, he's going to be able to outwork Smith. I think the late finish is live, the round 3 finish, round 3 sub, you already know I'm going to play it. It's probably going to be something like plus 2,000, maybe a little bit better on the domestics. So I'll probably be on that, but I am already on the Morales money line. I did play it yesterday. It was plus 190. I put a unit on it. And since then, I've gotten a ton of COV, which if you watch me, I don't love that. I know COV is a good thing. It's a very good thing, all jokes aside, but I just don't have luck with it. When I get COV, especially a lot of it, I usually lose my bets. So for me, I like reverse COV a little bit better, but it is what it is. Market agrees with me. He's now down all the way to plus 135, seeing plus 146, plus 140. For me, like, I'm literally picking him outright to win. So I'm saying he probably, in my opinion, he wins more than half the time. So there's still value there. I would probably still be playing it. I already have my plus 190, so I'm not going to add. And I don't blame you for passing if you can't get the same line. But make sure you're in my Discord, 100% free. That's where I post all my bets as soon as I make them. Anyone in the Discord did get the line if they tailed. But yeah, if you're watching it now and you're thinking about it, I'm fine with the plus 146, the plus 136. I think those are fine. Because at the end of the day, I think he should be like minus 125 personally. I know that would never happen because he's like doesn't have the prettiest record, second UFC stint, fighting a really hyped up prospect. So I know realistically the line would never be set that way, but I think that would be the correct line. I think Morales slight favorite. Maybe that's a little crazy of a take, but that's how I feel. Let's catch up with the chat and then we can move on. Glenn Bot, thanks for tuning in, brother. Always appreciate you. Morales late sub. You already know we will be there at plus 2,000 or better. His grappling did look good against Hunter, and Hunter's another really good wrestler fighting at a fight ready, great camp. And Morales looked good in that fight. It wasn't like a comeback sub or anything like that. It was a good performance. So that was impressive. And I don't hate the under 2.5 look. I do think that Morales is durable, but I could see that hitting. I could see it going under. Fight ends ITDs plus 210, under 2.5 plus 240. That's pretty nice. Because if you're really high on Smith and you like him here and you're betting him, I mean, he's pretty green, and you already know that his cardio isn't that good. So you might be better off playing either his ITD props or the unders. Maybe fight doesn't go. That way you cover yourself, whether Smith gets the knockout early or Morales gets a late finish. That could be a way to play it too. But personally, I like the Morales money line. I think he gets it done. All right, we can move on. Next up, we've got Gabriel Bonfim versus Khaos Williams. Bonfim 16-1-0. He's 27, 6'1" at the 72.5-inch reach. Williams 15-3-0, 30 years old. He's 3 years older, 1 inch shorter, and he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. So I was taping this one right before the show. It's one that I need to go and finish. I need to look a little bit more. There's a few more fights I want to watch for Williams in particular. But this does seem to me like a dog or pass spot. Now, I think Bonfim's the rightful favorite because he is young. He's still getting better. And honestly, I thought he looked pretty damn good in the Lusa fight. I know Lusa's not the greatest, and he's pretty hittable. But Bonfim looked nice, man. The way he was mixing in those knees, not just in the clinch, but whenever Lusa closed the distance, he just threw that knee up there. He landed that thing like 30 times. The hands looked fantastic. The counters looked fantastic. He was getting comfortable, started doing some I think he did a Superman punch, really put it together, and he looked really, really good. And I think he's the rightful favorite because he's a younger guy, and he's improving, like I said. Looked great in his Instagram, looks very fit, physical, thick, and he just has more ways to win. That's the most important thing for me. He just has more ways to win. At the end of the day, he is a good grappler. He is a good wrestler. He's got very good jiu-jitsu, and Khaos Williams has not really fought anyone like that. You go through his record, and there's no like phenomenal grapplers. Randy Brown's decent, and he shot on him and got stuffed. But it's like Bonfim's probably a better pure grappler than somebody like Randy Brown. So because of that, I think Bonfim's the rightful favorite. But this line is pretty damn wide considering his best win is like, I guess it's Lusa. Or maybe like, honestly, his best win's probably Munir says. Super underrated guy. Got cut, unfortunately, but I thought that guy was really good. Trey Waters is doing pretty well now. Trevin Giles is Trevin Giles. Good fighter with a bad record. Nicholas Dalby beat him. He just broke him. And that was like the first time he really got tested. But then he came back at elevation and showed that his cardio isn't necessarily a problem. And that's the thing with these young guys. You never know just how much they're going to improve. And at least in the cardio department, he improved a lot. But the striking also looked very, very competent. And we know that his grappling is good. And we know that he's very dangerous with the jiu-jitsu. But Khaos Williams, you know, he's also a really good fighter. Now, I don't really love his wins. I was going through his wins, and they're low-key not that great. Like, Carlston Harris is fine. Rolando Bedoya, low-key, I felt like Bedoya won that fight, and I had money on Williams, and I don't rate Bedoya too much, so I don't love that. Randy Brown, split decision loss. That was a good fight. Like, that's a good performance, even in a loss. Miguel Beza, you know, I think he's cut now. Matthew Semmelsberger, pretty sure he's cut now. Before that, I think there was Abdul Razak Al Hassan and a couple other guys. But overall, I kind of, off memory, I thought that Khaos Williams' record was better than it is. But regardless of the record, he is a really, really hard hitter. He's a good striker. He is a bit like loopy, and he really winds up his shots like a lot, and you can see them coming. So that's probably partially why he's so hittable, because the counters are pretty much always going to be there because you can see the shots coming, but he's also just not that defensively sound. And I don't love when he throws leg kicks. Leg kicks are good weapons, but I don't love when he does it because his hands come down every single time. Every time he throws a leg kicks, the hands come down and the chin comes a little high up. So that's a concern of mine. But overall, I think the striking is good. It's definitely going to be very competitive in the striking. Bonfim, definitely the cleaner, more technical, faster guy. But Khaos Williams, in my opinion, the guy who hits harder, who's going to land a little bit nicer when he does hit, who's going to be a bit more dangerous in the pocket. And so far, his takedown defense has been pretty good. Like I said, he hasn't really been tested there. So we don't know for sure yet. But he's fought some good grapplers. I mean, Carlson Harris is a good grappler. Not that he got a chance to really try. Like I said, Randy Brown shot on him. Brown is a fine wrestler, but it's not really his thing. So for me, rightful favorite is definitely Bonfim. More ways to win, grappling upside, submission upside, but it's dog or pass for me because I don't really want to lay minus 220 on him when he's probably fighting his best opponent to date in Khaos Williams, a guy who also is a very, very good fighter and extremely dangerous because with him, it only takes one. So I might talk myself into a Khaos Williams bet. I'm seeing plus 179 on BetOnline, plus 180, plus 186, I think, on FanDuel. Those are solid. I'm going to look at it a little bit more, make sure it's something I want to do, but it seems to me like a good spot. I'm going to pick Bonfim, but definitely a dog or pass situation for me. All right, next up, we've got Rafael Estevam versus Jesus Aguilar. Estevam, 12-0, undefeated, 28 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Aguilar on the other side, 11-2-0, 28 as well. He's 5'4". He's 4 inches shorter, and he's going to be at a 7-inch reach disadvantage. I don't know. Weird fight. Realistically, I think Estevam should be fine. He's been out for a while now, since the Charles Johnson win, 1 year and 2 months. Probably could use that time off. I don't know if he's going to make weight. He's a huge guy. He's missing weight already and missed weight last fight, I'm pretty sure. And he does slow down hard in the third round. So I don't think I could get to a play on him at minus 300, knowing that Jesus Aguilar, maybe not the most skilled guy in the world, but he will keep on coming. When we talk about having that dog in you, that dude has that dog in him. He will keep moving forward. He will keep coming forward. He'll jump that guillotine 20 times if he has to. He's a good scrambler and a good wrestler, and he'll work. So a guy like that, I don't really want to fade him with Estevam at major chalk. But in terms of just like the matchup, Estevam pretty much has all the tools to beat Aguilar. He's a better striker. He's a better offensive wrestler. In my opinion, the jiu-jitsu is better. I think that his control is going to be really good on Aguilar. He'll be able to keep him on his back. Aguilar also is a guy who, because he is dangerous in the jiu-jitsu, he's a guy who could play off of his back, and that could be a problem for him. So I think Estevam's going to be able to take him down. I think Estevam's going to be able to control him. I don't necessarily think Estevam finishes him. I kind of think this fight's like a sneaky one to go over or for the fight goes. Let me check what the prices are on that. So fight goes is plus 110. Estevam decision plus 150. I would just play the fight goes, but I like that spot because I don't think that the Aguilar guillotine is going to work here. Like this isn't what was his name? Stuart Nickel. Like this isn't Stuart Nickel. This is a guy who's a really elite grappler in his own right, and I just don't see the guillotine working here. And while Aguilar did knock out Shannon Ross, I don't think he's going to knock out Rafael Estevam. Not high on Aguilar striking. So I don't think a finish happens on his side. And can Estevam knock him out? I don't think so. Can he sub him? Maybe. But I don't think that's a high likelihood outcome. Me personally, I think this is going to be Estevam on top for 15 minutes. He's going to get the takedowns early in each round and take him down. Maybe the third round is where it gets kind of greasy. He slows down. Maybe the takedowns aren't as clean. Maybe he sticks his neck out or something. I can definitely see Aguilar making this tough. I'm going to be taping it a little bit more. I want to come back to it with a fresh mind and see if maybe Aguilar is a play I want to make at plus 300. I'm not dying to do it because I'm not crazy about his game, but he's just a guy who gets it done. He's another one of those guys who's just got the will, the drive, the cardio, and he'll just keep moving forward. But so far, Estevam undefeated, But this has also been the year of the undefeated fighters losing their O's, and this might be the spot that he does lose his O. I don't necessarily think so, but it could happen. It could happen. At plus 300, it's definitely dog or pass. I don't have interest on Estevam, but me personally, I'm a little bit more interested in the fight goes at plus money. I think that's a sneaky way to play it, and that's something I might do. Estevam will be the pick. All right, next up, we've got a short notice replacement. We've got Jared Gordon versus Mashrabjon Ruziboev. Gordon, 27-0, 36 years old, 5'9" with a 68-inch reach. Ruziboev, 24-1. He's 28, so he's 8 years younger, going to be 2 inches taller. Don't have his reach, but he is training with his brother, Nursultan Ruziboev, over at Martinez. BJJ, I believe is the name, or MMA. I think it's BJJ. Real quick, let me catch up with my guy Glenbot here. He's saying Jesus definitely fights for your money, so a long shot on Jesus by decision. Don't hate it. And he's mentioning that the guys losing their zeros are losing it by decision. And that's another good point. That is for the most part what's happening. But for this fight, so Ruziboev, he's coming in on short notice. Gordon was originally supposed to fight Cal Fernandez, I think is his name. And I looked into Ruziboev. He's a guy who, similar to his brother, because of the competition on the regional scene, you kind of just don't really know. Like, check out his last fight. The opponent is so bad, so out of shape. It was clearly like a major layup. Like, people were complaining about Alexander Topuria's record. Check out this guy's record, because he's got 25 fights and almost all of them are against terrible competition. And when it's not terrible competition, he loses. So not the best look. In terms of his game, like, he seems pretty good to me. I mean, his striking's solid. He hits very hard. Definitely has a lot of power. Decent wrestling in his own right. Does kind of stick his neck out there sometimes, but he can wrestle. But realistically, can I really bet him against Jared Gordon? I mean, Jared Gordon's on the older side of things. He does struggle a little bit sometimes to separate and make it clear that he won. I mean, the Nazar Haqparast fight, a lot of people felt like he won, and he kind of lost that one. The Paddy Pimblay fight, he got robbed blind. I'm not sure what he really could have done more clearly there, but he tends not to separate too much. But if we're just looking at the matchup, I mean, Jared Gordon's fought the much higher level of competition. He's not on short notice. He was preparing for this fight. He's been in the UFC for much longer, way longer. He's probably going to have the wrestling upside, probably has the jiu-jitsu upside. In the striking, Ruziboev does seem like he might be a better striker, but Gordon's a good striker in his own right. So for me, it's kind of a pass. I don't really want to lay major chalk on Gordon and just fade an unknown guy in Ruziboev, because how many times have we seen that story, right? Where an unknown guy with like a shaky record comes in, people really doubt them because they haven't fought the best competition, and then they get like a finish or something. So Ruziboev KO is something I'll be looking at. Maybe fight ends ITD depending on the price. I think they actually dropped it already. Let me see. It's not on Fight Odds. It's probably on Bet Online, but I don't want to pull it up right now. Either way, violence might be the answer here. Maybe a sprinkle on Ruziboev KO if it's something crazy, because he does seem to hit pretty hard, but I can't see him beating Jared Gordon over 15 minutes. So it's finish or bust, in my opinion, for Ruziboev, but it's also kind of a show me spot because he very well might be great. I can't fully tell because of the level of competition. And I know with Jared Gordon, he is a good fighter, and I know that I'm getting a good fighter with him. So Jared Gordon will be the pick. Not going to play him, though. I wouldn't be shocked with an upset on the Ruziboev side. And we can move on. All right, next up, we're up to my second and only other bet on the card for now. We have Angela Hill versus Caitlin Souza. Hill, 14-1. 40 years old, 5'3" with a 64.5-inch reach. On the other side, Souza, 15-4-0. She's 29, so she's going to be 11 years young. She's going to be the same height, and she's going to be at a 1.5-inch reach disadvantage. So when the line first dropped, I went pretty heavy on Hill. I hit the money line a few times, pretty hefty, and then I taped it, and I bought off a little bit. Now I have about 1.2 units staked on Hill to win one. Nothing crazy. I just think that I know she's 40, but the only real advantages here that I give to Souza are the age, maybe power, and finishing upside. That's really it. Outside of that, like, I think Hill is better everywhere. I don't think Souza's all that great. She is a good striker. She's not bad at all. But I think Hill is a better striker. I think her output is going to be a lot better. I think that she's going to be the cleaner one on the feet. I think she can maybe mix in some takedowns. Souza could get stuck on her back when she's being grappled. And Hill has improved that portion of her game a lot. So for me, and I think she has the better cardio, the better pace. I think she's going to be in Souza's face the entire time. I think she's going to be outlanding her. Souza landing the bigger shots, but Hill landing more often. And like I said, I know she's 40, but for her, this is her peak, in my opinion. I think she peaked late. I think it took her time to develop. But right now, I would say she's about at her peak. She's fought a much higher level of competition. And I think people are just kind of high on Souza now because of that Yasmin Yaregi finish. And it was a good finish, but I just don't see that happening at a super high clip. So I do like Hill here. I played the money line minus 125. I think it's even closer now. Yeah, you can get Hill minus 110, pick them. I think that's a solid spot. Just to win one unit, nothing crazy. Because like I said, at the end of the day, Hill is 40, and Souza does hit pretty hard, and she does have finishing upside. And because of that power, she could maybe win some minutes on the feet too. I mean, some moments on the feet too. So Hill for me, I think another sneaky way to do this, and I'm probably going to do it because the line is just insane, is the under, or the fight doesn't go. The under 2.5 is plus 400. The fight ends ITD is plus 350. If Souza wins, I think she finishes. And I wouldn't be shocked if Hill could finish her late either. So that just seems like a really nuts price. And the spot where you could just lay a quarter unit to win one and not worry too much. You can expect it to lose, and it could very well hit because I can see a way for both of them to finish. I don't think it's a super likely outcome, and I wouldn't be betting it at Pick'em. But at this line, I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good spot, plus 400. So you get either the early finish by Souza or an attritional finish by Hill. I think both are very possible. Not likely, but both are very possible. So that'll probably be a sprinkle I have, and we can move on. Glenbot agreeing with me on Hill. Thinks Souza gasses a little bit. And Mushroom's in the chat. What's up, Mushroom? Thank you for tuning in, brother. All right, so next fight on the main card, we've got Jose Delgado versus Connor Matthews. Delgado 8-1-0. He's 26 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. And he's at MMA Lab, a gym that I really love for this range of weight classes between like flyweight and featherweight. They just have a really, really stacked gym. So I love that gym. Connor Matthews, 7-2-0. He's 32, so he's going to be 6 years older. He's going to be 3 inches shorter, and he's given up a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Training at a New England cartel, fighting on the same card as a fellow teammate of his, Cavalcanti. Solid gym, but also a gym that kind of, I feel like they don't game plan super well. Because you look at the Connor Matthews Dennis Bazookia fight. In my opinion, that was a super winnable fight for Matthews if he came with the right game plan and grappled. But he barely grappled. When he did, he had success, but he didn't for the most part, and he ended up getting finished late by Bazookia. I believe it was the 3rd round. Bazookia is a decent fighter, but I think Jose Delgado might be a step above that. Connor Matthews, he does have the good win over Yair Farias. He was an underdog in that spot in the Contender Series, came in there, really outworked Farias and got that upset. He lost before that. I mean, he had the one other win here, but he lost before that in the Contender Series against Francis Marshall. Kind of got his ass beat. But first of all, Francis Marshall, in my opinion, is pretty good. And second of all, I think Connor Matthews improved a lot. I spoke to him. I had an interview with him. He was actually the first interview I ever did. And I had it with him after his Ari Farias performance. I think it was either right after it or right before it. I don't remember exactly. But either way, cool dude, was in the military, was a combat controller, I think it was called. I already don't remember. It's been a long time since the interview. But he explained that he really was, after that Francis Marshall loss, he really worked on all aspects of his game. He actually trained with Francis Marshall like once or twice after losing to him, which I always like to see. And I think overall, Matthews is a decent, well-rounded fighter who can wrestle, who can strike decently, but he is really hittable. And he does make a lot of mistakes, and I don't love the game planning. And Delgado, so I don't love Dana White's Contender Series guys coming on into their debut for the first time and being minus 215, no, he's even higher. He's like minus 290 now. That's a lot. And I did try fading him with Ernie Juarez, and I don't think it was a terrible bet, but Delgado just kind of outclassed him. I think this dude is really good, really good. I think that similar to Smith, who we spoke about earlier, Elijah Smith, I think similar to him, he's still pretty green, but at the same time, he's also really good everywhere, and he's not fighting a vet like Smith is. Smith is fighting a vet in Vince Morales, who's fought all over the world. Connor Matthews isn't a vet. He's new to the UFC as well, relatively new. And I know that he's 32 years old, so he's not exactly a young prospect, but he's 7-2-0. He doesn't have a ton of fights either. So I wouldn't say he's like he's like way more experienced. He's not. He's had about the same exact amount of fights. He did have the exact same amount of fights. So with Delgado, I just feel like Delgado, he's better everywhere. At range, I think he's much better. He's super dangerous in the clinch. He's got good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu as well. He could catch Connor Matthews in a sub. Matthews could maybe mix in some takedowns, but on the feet, he's way too hittable. I feel like Delgado's just going to land a lot of big shots. I think he's going to be able to catch him in something, maybe a club and sub, maybe a knockout. But for me, I think Delgado wins. I think Delgado covers. I think maybe you could parlay him. I haven't yet because I don't really know if there's anything I want to parlay him with. But we'll see. I might end up doing something with him. I do like let's see what his ITD props are. ITD plus 100. He probably finishes, but do I want to bet it at even money? Not really. So for me, it's Delgado or pass, but you got to figure out a way to play him. KO's plus 200, sub plus 350. I lean towards the KO with how hittable Matthews is, but like I said, club and sub could be live too, so I'd be careful there. For me, it's either parlay piece Delgado or just watch the fight. All right. Next up, we've got Rodolfo Vieira versus Andre Petroski. Vieira 10-2-0. He's 35, 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. Petroski 12-3-0. He's 33, so he's 2 years younger. He's going to be 6 feet tall, and he's going to have a 73-inch reach as well. Let me catch up with the chat because there's someone I got to answer at the end. Mushroom saying Delgado ITD makes sense to me. Glenbot saying, I know this alt seems to only be available in Ireland/UK, but under 2.5 is minus 125. That's not bad. It might be similar on DraftKings and stuff when it opens. Let's see. Glenbot saying mushroom the ITD for Jose is plus 100, so hit fight doesn't go the distance instead. Yeah, makes sense. Herb Dean, the gold standard. When do you think Jubilee cracks the top 10? Well, now probably never. All right. I thought he had the potential for it. Thank you very much. That's why Herb Dean, the gold standard, is coming in here and taking a shot at me. And it's fair enough because I did think that Jubilee could be a top 10 guy eventually. Now, keyword, I did say eventually. I didn't say right now. And he did get a pretty tough fight there in Southkill. But yeah, I mean, he got cracked pretty hard and it is what it is. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him personally. I think they might give up on the Jubilee experience. I hope they don't because I still have hopes. I'm delusional. But yeah, he's probably done. I still maintain that he's a good fighter, though. I'm not going away from that. And then I was like, Emilio, thanks for tuning in, brother. I think this is the first time I'm seeing you. Let's go flawless on our parlay this weekend. Well, we'll see if I'll have a parlay, but I'm not sure yet. Herb Dean saying, got to feel for the guy. I would have let Jubilee keep fighting. Yeah, I mean, it's like at least let him try, you know, because that was probably it. And he didn't even get to really throw anything. He just kind of got decked, fell to the ground, and it is what it is. But would have really been cool to see that fight play out because that would have answered it for me at least. Like, is Jubilee actually bad, like people say, or was I onto something and is he pretty good? Now we might never know, but maybe he'll end up in PFL or something and win a belt or something. That could work too. But back to this fight. Not a fight I'm running to the window to bet. I know a few sharp people on Vieira. It makes sense to me. I think he has Petroski covered. He's a better striker, probably the better cardio, even though I don't think either of them has the best cardio. Pure wrestling, you probably have to give that to Petroski. But in terms of mixed martial arts, how it is in the cage, I think Vieira is also a good wrestler. I think he can land takedowns as well. Put the wrestler onto his back. And obviously with the jiu-jitsu, I know they're both black belts, but I think Vieira is a different caliber of black belt. I think Vieira has all the finishing upside here, whether it's catching Petroski with something. I know Vieira doesn't knock anyone out, but neither does Jacob Malkoun's hip. And Jacob Malkoun's hip did indeed knock out Andre Petroski. So might not take all that much. And then I do think the submission will probably be there, because if Petroski's going to want to win, he's going to need to get some takedowns, because I don't think he can strike with Vieira over 15 minutes. Not that Vieira is a champion kickboxer, but I just think he's the better striker. And if he does grapple, then Vieira will probably have those submission opportunities. But do I want to lay minus 220 on it or minus 250? Not really, because he's on the older side of things. And maybe if he slows down, I could see Petroski having some success with the wrestling. And his jiu-jitsu is pretty damn good, and he mixes it with the wrestling very well. Like, his control is very solid. He takes the back very nicely. But overall, I don't really see a huge path for him. Like, if I'm trying to game it out, I can see him maybe squeezing out a decision, but that's kind of it. I feel like Vieira probably wins this fight, and he could win it in pretty much any way. If it's probably a decision or a sub, I lean towards decision a little bit, but KO could probably happen too. Possibly happen. Let me see what the totals look like. Fight ends ITD minus 175. I wouldn't take that, just because Petroski's a good grappler in his own right. Maybe he can stay safe, So I'd be careful there. And if they're just on top of each other grappling and the subs aren't working, that's just going to kill the clock and kill the under. So I'm not really going to bet either one of those, but I would personally, I'd pass on the total. And then let's see what the props look like. Vieira ITD minus 115. I don't love that. If anything, I'd be a little more interested in Vieira by decision plus 275. That feels like that's maybe a little bit more off than the other props, but I'm not really dying to play anything here. Vieira seems like he should probably win. Is he somebody I'm going to parlay? Probably not. I'm going to look at this one a little bit more. It's one of the ones that I have on my list that I want to come back and look at with a fresh mind. That's a big thing for me. I'll tape fights, but with some of them, I want to come back and look at them when I'm a little bit, removed from it. So we'll see what happens there, but it's definitely Vieira for me as a pick. I think he's likely to get the win there. Next up, we've got a really fun fight. We have Ismael Bonfim versus Nazim Sadykhov. Bonfim, 24-0. He's 29 years old. He's 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. On the other side, Sadykhov, 9-1-1. He's 30, so he's 1 year older, kind of 2 years older almost. He's going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Real quick, let me catch up with the chat. Glenbot saying Petroski under 2.5, minus 133 is surprising. Yeah, it makes sense. But I also wouldn't be shocked with it going over, like I said. Yeah, that hip KO was kind of crazy. But all right. So for this fight, I taped this one pretty in depth. I really wanted to get a good read on it, because when I taped it, Bonfim was like minus 140. I thought maybe there might be some value there. And then the fight goes the minus 145 and the over 2.5 at minus 160. Those caught my eyes because both of them are very durable, like very durable. And Bonfim, when he's getting finished, he's getting subbed, and I don't think Sadykhov's going to submit him. Sadykhov, I know he's subbed Terrence. I know that he's a pretty good wrestler. And unlike some people, I do think he could get takedowns here, but I don't really see him subbing Bonfim. And I don't see either of them knocking each other out. So I think that the fight goes and the over are my favorite bet here. I haven't done it yet. I try to wait for other books to open it up. I try to wait for limits to open up. Not necessarily because I need it, but if I'm going to tip it out, I try to make sure it's available everywhere these days. So I'm waiting, but those are plays that I do like quite a bit. The fight goes and the over. But in terms of a side, it's like, so I do think this fight plays out on the feet for the most part, because Bonfim, I'd say his takedown defense is pretty damn good. And so is Sadykhov's, and I don't really expect Bonfim to wrestle. He has here and there, but I don't really expect him to. And then Nazim, I do think he could wrestle. I do think he will mix it in. Do I think he'll get the takedowns at a super high clip? No, but I do think he can get some of them. But knowing that this probably plays out on the feet for the most part, Bonfim is the better striker. I think he's the better striker. I think he's more technical. He's cleaner, more accurate, mixes it up a little bit better, and his defense is definitely better than Sadykhov's. But that said, minus 200, minus 220, now it seems like we're going a little bit far, because I feel like Sadykhov might hit harder. I think Sadykhov's a really good striker in his own right. I do think Bonfim's a little better, like I said, but A lot better? I don't really think so. So for me, it's like, I think Sadykhov's competitive on the feet, maybe some power upside, a little bit of wrestling upside. And I'm getting him at what? Plus 175? Seems like a pretty good line. I think I'm going to wait a little longer because I know some really sharp people tipped out Bonfim. So I expect their followers to kind of keep betting that line down as the week goes on, and maybe some other people hop on. I understand it at minus 140. I understand it at minus 150. I don't really understand playing it at minus 200, minus, what is it now? Yeah, minus 205. That, to me, is too much. So as of now, I'm targeting the totals. I'm targeting fight goes, anti-violence. But if the line keeps going this way, I'll definitely put a unit on one unit on Sadykhov. I might already do it. I'm going to try to feel out the market, doing the best to get better at reading the market. I think I'm improving a little bit, but I still got some work to do. But that is a spot I'm looking at. If I get something like plus 185 or plus 200, then I'm going to move pretty quickly and get a unit down. I think I'm hoping for plus 200. That's what I'm looking out for. And on top of that, like I said, I'm going to be playing the totals too. But in terms of just a pick, who do I think wins more times at it than the other guy? And if they run it back 10 times, I think it's probably Bonfim. So I'll pick him, but it's dog or pass at this line. But my favorite bet, anti-violence, overs, and fight goes. So this is a fight. Next up, we got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Dylan Budka. Shahbazyan, 13-5-0, 27 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. On the other side, Budka, 7-4-0. He's 25, so he's 2 years younger. He's going to be 2 inches shorter, and he's going to have the same reach. So I feel like this is kind of like both of their last chances. Like, I don't think Edmen's going to get cut if he loses. But if he loses, it's probably a pretty bad look and not a great sign for his career. And then Budka, 2 losses in a row, hasn't really been performing very well. In the Cesar Almeida fight, like, he did okay until he didn't. And then against Petroski, that was just a terrible, terrible performance. Really boring fight and not a great look for Budka. But look, Budka does look in really good shape. He definitely seems to be working hard on just getting more physical, getting stronger, because he's a little small. Not really, but he's on the smaller end of middleweight for sure. But he's a good wrestler. He low-key has a little bit of power, I would say. I think that's an underrated part of him. I think he does have some power. Azamat Bakov, who just made his debut not too long ago and kicked the crap out of Zach Reese, he got taken to a 25-minute split decision fight against Budka, where Budka hurt him 2 or 3 times. I think he dropped him, and that's pretty good. Bakov's a beast. Maybe he's a little chinny, but I think Budka low-key has a little bit of underrated power. And then with Edmen, elite striker. I think he's a really good striker. He's really fast, really dangerous, very powerful, very accurate, really nice counters. But boy, oh boy, the cardio is horrible. His cardio is so bad. And every single time I say, like, oh, he's 26 or oh, he's 27, his cardio will improve. He'll work on it. He's at Extreme Couture now. He's been at Extreme Couture for a few fights now, I think, and still waiting for that cardio to get good. Right now, it's not. So for me, it's like Edmen should really win this fight. Dylan Budka is really, really hittable on the feet. And I know Edmen's like a hole in his game has always been wrestling, but the guys who are wrestling him and completely out grappling him are really high level guys for the most part. I don't know if I have Budka there yet. So I think Edmen's going to come out there, and I think he probably knocks out Budka early. But if he doesn't, anything can happen. I still think he'll probably win. I just think he's a better fighter. But that cardio is really bad. The drop off for him is really bad. And I don't think Budka's terrible. I think he needs to still put it together. But he's 25 years old. He's still pretty young, especially in the fight game. So maybe we can expect some improvements from him. It's just he's also not at a major gym, kind of doing his own thing. So it would be a different story if he was like an American Top Team or Killcliff or Fight Ready or any of those good gyms. That would be a different story, but he's not. So I don't know how much improvement I can expect. He's definitely more in shape now, but can he strike with Edmen? Hell no. Can he get takedowns? Maybe, but he's kind of one-dimensional with that because I talk about it all the time. Having good wrestling is one thing, but if you don't have hands to support it, your takedowns aren't going to be as effective as maybe a guy who's not the best wrestler, but has really good striking. And because of the threat of the hands, they could mix in the wrestling. So because of that, I feel like Budka doesn't really have that. He can't really set up the takedowns as well. It's kind of just shooting every time. But again, if Edmen falls off a cliff and gets really tired, anything can happen, and Budka could maybe take over. So I think that it's a pass, but I think it's also a solid live bet spot. It's a spot where if Edmen doesn't kill him early and you get to the 7.5 minute mark, and maybe Budka got a takedown or something, but he's still really still a pretty big underdog on the live line, then that could be a spot to maybe play it. But overall, it's Edmen. Not really any interest on either money line. He's minus 360. Edmen KO, I think, is chalk too. Yeah, Edmen KO is plus 125. It's not bad, but I feel like Budka's pretty durable too, so might stay off of that. Fight ends ITD minus 240. Not crazy about that. Let's see what the chat's saying. Six Hound, thanks for tuning in, bro. Good to see you. Ginger super fight indeed. Glenn Bot saying he played the under 2.5 in here. He either gets KO'd or gasses and quits. It's possible. I just feel like Budka doesn't have a ton of finishing upside other than the slightly underrated power I think he might have. Edmen is going to be the much bigger guy. I think it's definitely going to show. But all right, we can move on. Next up, we've got our co-main event. We've got Calvin Kattar versus Youssef Zalal. Kattar, 23-8-0. He's 36 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Zalal on the other side, 16-5-1. He's 28, so he's 8 years younger. He's 1 inch shorter, and he's going to have the same reach. Really, really interesting fight. Zalal, crazy, crazy career resurgence. I didn't think he did that bad in his first run either. His wins were just kind of low level, and then his losses were to the high level guys. So you couldn't put a ton into it. But then he went on to the regionals, did his thing, got a bunch of finishes, and then he just came back and then he just finishes Billy Q, runs through Jarno Aarons, makes him look like a complete fish on the mat, and then finishes Jack Shore. And to me, that was really impressive. I thought he'd beat Jack Shore. I didn't think he was going to finish Jack Shore. I'm pretty sure I had an over or something there, and he cooked that over. And this is another spot where it's a few years ago at this line, max bet Kattar a few years ago. Now, I'm good. I'm personally passing on this one. Kattar, I still think he's an elite striker, and maybe he's still a better pure striker than Zalal. But I think he's kind of lost a lot of his speed. I think he's lost a lot of his explosiveness. I think he's lost some of his durability as well. And on the feet, I still think he's a better striker, but Zalal is a good striker in his own right. Very rangy. He uses that range well. If he uses that movement that he uses often, it can make it a little hard for Kattar to find him. And I don't think it's a great game plan for him to just strike with Kattar, because Kattar, I think, is still a very elite striker and a really, really good one at that. But he probably could compete, and then if he grapples, he should be okay. I know he's not Aljo Sterling, but he's got better hands than Sterling, and like I was saying before, having that striking makes a difference in how effective your wrestling could be too. So I think that Zalal is going to win this fight. I think it's probably by decision, but I don't really want to bet another chalky total on a Zalal fight where he keeps proving me wrong every single time and showing that he really is a lot better and a lot better of a finisher. So I think I'm probably going to pass. Let's look at what the lines look like. So minus 425 on Zalal, plus 325 on Kattar. Imagine someone telling you a few years back that in 2025, Calvin Kattar would be plus 300 to Youssef Zalal. People would laugh at you. Zalal ITD plus 245. Fight ends ITD plus 175. I don't hate that, but it feels pretty predicated on Zalal. And he could do it, but not really something I want to play with personally. Glenbot saying this is his main event, Zalal Army. I do think Zalal wins. Kattar ACL reconstruction after the Allen fight. Yeah, I mean, that would definitely make sense with the whole losing his speed and explosiveness in particular. So yeah, it's a lot for me. Can't really do a ton with the money line though. All right, and we got our main event of the evening. We've got Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodrigues, RoboCop. Cannonier, 17, 8, and 0, 40 years old, 5'11" with a 77-inch reach. RoboCop, 16, 5, and 0. He's 32. He's 8 years younger, even though he looks like 20 years older. He's going to be 4 inches taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So if you told me a few years back that Gregory Rodrigues would be like striking distance away from a title shot, like 2 fights away, I would not have believed you. But here we are. I mean, a win over Cannonier probably gets him somebody like Izzy or Sean or maybe Paulo. Probably gets him there. And then one more win after that, and that might do the trick, which is just crazy because it's like he got knocked out by Jordan Williams on the Contender Series, got knocked out by Bruno Ferreira. So it's just nuts. But for me, this is a really tricky fight because Jared Cannonier, I think, is elite. And I think he's been able to do it for a really long time. He's 40, but he was still getting the job done. He has way more he has all the 5-round experience here. Definitely fought the higher level of competition. Definitely more proven. Seems to be more durable, but I don't think he's washed. I think he's still good. But I think the durability is starting to go, and I definitely do see him regressing a little bit. He's not taking the shots as well. Similar to Izzy, kind of, where like they're still looking good, but they're not taking the shots as well. They seem a little bit slower, and that's what I'm seeing with Cannonier. The power is still there. He definitely seems to still hit really, really hard. He's still a really good striker, mixes it up very well. He'll go to the body really nicely. So he's still good, and like the takedown defense is very solid. He's not an easy guy to take down at all. He's not an easy guy to hold down. But RoboCop, in my opinion, he's like really been putting it together. Now, the durability against a guy like Jared Cannonier is one of the reasons I don't think I could see myself getting to minus 220 on RoboCop. I think that you can make an argument that it's accurate because Cannonier is regressing, because RoboCop is improving. He also has power upside, hits really hard. He's an absolute dog. He'll fight through anything. He'll fight for your money 100%. And yeah, Cannonier is not easy to take down, but Rodrigues is a pretty good wrestler, and he's got really, really high-level jiu-jitsu that he doesn't always use when he should, but that he does use sometimes, and when he does, it's very, very good. So because of that, I think there's a solid argument to be made that the line's accurate, but I don't really see much value because it's like, what's his cardio going to look like after the 3rd round? I think his cardio is good, and he's been looking really good in his recent fights, put together a really competent performance over Christian Duncan. He had a really nice performance against Brad Tavares, who's also getting a little bit older, but I think he's going to be in Jared Cannonier's face. I think he's going to be backing him up. He's going to eat some big shots. He's going to give a lot of big shots. I think he's live to finish Jared too. I think he's live to take down Jared and sub him. Won't be easy, but I think it's a possibility. So yeah, overall, I definitely think he's the rightful favorite, G-Rod. I definitely think that the line to me makes sense. But like I said, I just don't see a ton of value. And there's the very valid concerns of he's never been 5 rounds. Can he do it? And can he take the shots of Jared? Because he's a bit he's quite chinny. Now, I'd argue that his recovery is pretty insane too. Like in the Park fight where Park hurt him and then he just came back and just knocked him out instead while probably still hurt. And then the Chitty fight where his entire face was falling apart and he just kept fighting and got his own finish. The dude is he's got a lot of grit. He's going to always keep fighting until either he's out or his opponent's out. So yeah, because of those reasons, I can't get to the money line, but it makes sense to make him the favorite. I think I'm probably going to pass. If the line gets insane on Cannonier, like something, I don't know. What would get me to click? Maybe plus 250, I would start to get interested because I still think he's a very good fighter, Cannonier. So at that line, I could get interested. Right now, I'm just going to pass. The under 2.5 at plus 180, I don't hate it at all. Both guys hit like a train. G-Rod, Chinny, and Jared Cannonier starting to lose some of his own durability. And I think they're going to start this really, really high pace. So under 2.5 makes sense to me. I'm not amazing at unders. I'm better at overs. So I'm not really rushing to play it. If anything, like I'd feel better with like an under 4.5, but that's probably going to be chalked. So let me see what the line looks like. Where did I get plus 180? No, I mixed it up. Under 2.5 got smashed. It opened at plus 140. It's now minus 125. Fight ends ITD minus 265. Yeah, I tend to think it's going to end ITD, but under 2.5 makes sense. I just don't think I can do it. Not really a spot that I'm good at getting a read on. So I'm going to pass on that. But Gregory Rodrigues for me, I think RoboCop gets it done, and he gets real close to a title shot, which is just crazy and amazing because I love the guy. I'm a huge fan. He's definitely up there in my favorite fighters. Let's catch up with the chat before we hop on out. Yitro, thanks for tuning in. I believe this is the first time I'm seeing you, but might not be. He's parlaying the co-main over 2.5 and the main fight not to go. Okay, don't hate it. I'd be a little worried because Zalal's been finishing real nice and Kattar is regressing a little bit, but makes sense. 6hound saying RoboCop is future champ. I hope you're right. That's a timeline I want to live in. That's a timeline I want to live in where Gregory Rodrigues is the champion at 185. That would be something. Can you imagine him versus Drickus? That would be so good. Glenbot, okay, in 3 rounds. I always bet the under 2.5 in RoboCop fights, but with Jared, I think you need to go under 3.5. Yeah, that makes sense too. Probably going to be what? Looking at those 2 lines, probably like minus 175. Maybe something like that. They'll open it. And Glenbot will be donating to RoboCop sub. It has to hit eventually, right? Eventually it's going to have to hit. Plus 550. I'd probably need a little bit higher because Cannonier is pretty good defensively in the grappling. Yitro saying they're both powerful and easy to hit. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Big Steve's biggest fan. What's up? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and it does seem to me like I think he could take a punch, but he's not taking them like he used to. He used to be able to take a punch. Now, definitely not taking them as well as he used to. And 6hound saying he got the under 2.5 at plus money. That's a nice snipe. That's something I probably would have considered if I got that plus 140, but at minus 125, I'm not dying to play that. But that's it, guys. That's UFC Vegas 102. I'll run through the picks one more time. I'll give you the 2 bets I do have, and we'll get out of here. Jacqueline Cavalcanti's the pick. Cavalcanti. I'm going to be targeting the KO props. We'll see what the domestics open them at. Valter Walker, but I'm not really interested in the money line. Got to tape that one a little bit more. Vince Morales, and I do have a bet on the money line. Bonfim, but Khaos Williams or pass. Estevam, Gordon, but Ruziboev KO or pass. Hill, Delgado, Vieira, Bonfim, but Sadykhov or pass, and I like the overs better than a money line. Edmen, but don't touch it. Maybe live bet Budka. Zalal, G-Rod. And then my 2 bets, like I said, Angela Hill minus 120 to win 1 unit, and Vince Morales plus 190 for 1 unit. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. It really, really helps. And if you're on Twitter, comment, like, retweet. You guys never do. It's time you start. Thank you. Thank you guys, and I'll catch you next time. Good luck this weekend.